In 1982,
Los Angeles reopened the case of Marilyn Monroe's death.
After 20 years, it's time to clear up this case once and for all.
The world saw a star, a blonde bombshell who lit up every screen she touched. She was glamour, desire, the definition of Hollywood in the 1950s. But behind that smile, Marilyn Monroe was writing. Not lines for a movie script, not rehearsed interviews. She was writing her own truths, scribbled in notebooks, typed in letters, words that no one wanted to hear when she was alive.
You know, since this article is going to be on fame, I like to state here and now, fame is fickle.
In those pages, she was raw, confessing loneliness, fear, the pain of being treated like an object instead of a woman. She spoke of love, betrayal, and nights where despair pressed in like a weight she couldn't lift.
Today about the FBI's secret files on Marilyn Monroe. They reveal some of her friends were suspected communists, and she once considered traveling to the Soviet Union. The FBI kept files on her from 1955 until her death in 1962.
For decades, those letters stayed hidden, locked away in private collections, buried in estates. And the world kept the myth alive, the glamorous blonde who never quite belonged. Then, decades after her death, the letters surfaced, auctioned, published, exposed to the world. And suddenly, Marilyn Monroe wasn't just a legend anymore. She was a voice, a woman whispering to us through time. These letters changed everything we thought we knew about her. And it's about to change yours, too.
Well, I used to long for it. I used to appear on, when I was modeling, on men's magazine covers, such as, I don't know, Squint, Peep, Take a Peep, all those things.
Segment 1. The star everyone thought they knew. In the 1950s, Hollywood perfected the art of building dreams, and no dream shined brighter than Marilyn Monroe. She wasn't born into it. She wasn't handed privilege. She was Norma Jean Mortensen, a foster child who bounced between families and orphanages in Los Angeles. She found stability only in front of a camera, first as a model, then with persistence as an actress under contract at 20th Century Fox. By 1953, the transformation was complete. Gentlemen Prefer Blondes made her a global sensation. The pink dress, the glittering diamonds, the playful wink. It wasn't just a performance, it was the creation of an icon. 2 years later, the white dress scene from The 7-Year Itch etched her into pop culture forever. Those images were splashed on billboards, postcards, magazines.
It's good to have caviar. We had it every damn day, you know? Yeah, too much caviar.
The world thought they knew her. To the public, she was the fun-loving blonde bombshell. Carefree, sexy, sometimes ditzy. The girl who made men laugh and women want to be her. And Hollywood kept her in that box. Studio executives gave her roles that played up the stereotype. A dumb blonde, a joke that made money. Even when she delivered critically acclaimed performances, like her Golden Globe-winning role in Some Like It Hot in 1959, the industry still dismissed her as unstable, a star who was late to set, too emotional, too fragile. But here's the part that didn't make headlines. Marilyn knew she was trapped inside that image, and she hated it. In 1954, at the height of her fame, she shocked the studio system by founding Marilyn Monroe Productions. It was her way of demanding control, something no actress of her stature had dared before. She fought to be seen as more than a pin-up. She studied acting at Lee Strasberg's Actors Studio in New York. the same school where Marlon Brando and James Dean trained. She devoured books. She scribbled poetry. She poured herself into method acting, desperate to be taken seriously. Off-screen, those close to her saw a different woman. Shy, thoughtful, insecure. Co-stars like Jane Russell remembered her as humble and nervous. Paula Strasberg, her acting coach, saw a student obsessed with proving herself. But the world only saw the glamour.
I liked Marilyn very much. She was very shy, and I never saw anybody work harder in my life.
The press hounded her, calling her difficult, mocking her marriages, reducing her to punchlines. People laughed at her. They dismissed her as a blonde who got lucky. Yet, in the pages of her notebooks, in the letters she left behind, Marilyn was already writing a different story. She wrote about feeling invisible, about being ridiculed for her intelligence, about how the laughter hurt more than the rumors. She admitted she was terrified, terrified of being abandoned, terrified of being seen as a failure, terrified of fading away when the spotlight moved on.
It has its compensation. It does. But it also has its drawbacks.
Marilyn Monroe wasn't just an actress playing a role on screen. She was also playing a role in real life, Hollywood's perfect fantasy. But deep down, she knew the fantasy was a lie. And years later, when her letters finally came to light, the truth poured out. But the woman the world thought they knew was hiding a different story in ink.
Through lunchtime, she had her head in the book or in the script, and at night she would go and work with her coach. Well, if you've ever followed someone around making a motion picture, it's a tough day, and at the end of the day, you're good and tired. But Marilyn would go to her coach and work for 2 or 3 more hours.
Segment 2. The discovery of the letters. Marilyn Monroe died in August 1962, just 36 years old. Officially, her death was ruled a probable suicide, and for decades, the world mourned the myth, not the woman. Her possessions, letters, diaries, drafts, were locked away. Much of it passed to Lee Strasberg, the famed acting teacher she considered a father figure. For years, those boxes remained unopened, stacked in storage. Marilyn's voice sealed away in the dark. That silence began to break in 1999. Christie's auctioned off hundreds of her personal items. Dresses, shoes, makeup, photographs. Fans lined up to bid on a piece of her magic. But the letters? The notebooks? Those stayed hidden, still clutched in the Strasberg estate. Then, almost half a century after her death, the world finally heard her voice. In 2008, Anna Strasberg, Lee's widow, opened those boxes and discovered an archive unlike anything Hollywood had ever seen. Inside were letters to lovers, acting coaches, psychiatrists, poems written on hotel stationery, notes scribbled on scraps of paper, even carbon copies of typed confessions sent when she felt desperate to be heard.
Fame and happiness, it seems to me, is certainly temporary and a partial happiness.
Vanity Fair published a preview of the discovery. They called it extraordinary, raw, intimate. And in 2010, the world got to read those words for themselves. A book titled Fragments, Poems, Intimate Notes, letters compiled decades of Marilyn's private writings. For the first time, people weren't guessing at what she felt. They were reading it, in her own words. And then came the auctions. In 2016, Julian's Auctions held a 3-day event billed as the biggest Marilyn sale ever. The spotlight was on the sparkling gowns and glamorous dresses, especially the one she wore to sing Happy Birthday to President Kennedy, which sold for $4.8 million. But the real treasures were quieter. Letters to Arthur Miller, showing her heartbreak in their marriage. Notes to Lee and Paula Strasberg, confessing her fears of being crazy like her family. And a carbon copy of a desperate letter written in March 1961, describing her confinement at Payne Whitney, a psychiatric ward in New York. The words shocked readers. They were unfiltered, vulnerable, sometimes poetic, sometimes painfully blunt. They weren't the voice of a Hollywood starlet. They were the voice of a woman crying out. The discovery of those letters didn't just add a footnote to her story. It flipped the narrative. The world didn't just rediscover Marilyn Monroe. They discovered her truth. What those letters revealed wasn't gossip. It was a cry for help.
She was difficult that way, but it was not, as I say, temperamental. It was just the only way she knew how to work.
Segment 3. The pain she hid in writing. The world saw diamonds and laughter. But in her letters, Marilyn Monroe revealed something far darker. Her private writings are filled with loneliness, doubt, a constant fear that she wasn't enough. In one fragment, written on hotel stationery, she confessed, "Alone. I am always alone." The line repeats like a refrain across her notebooks. She could be surrounded by cameras, fans, and co-stars, yet still feel invisible. Hollywood called her difficult, but Marilyn's words tell us she was overwhelmed. She struggled with insomnia, with anxiety before shoots, with the crushing pressure of being the woman the world wanted her to be. And at her lowest points, she didn't hide those feelings. She put them on paper.
It's a pity so many people despise and crush this natural gift.
One of the most haunting letters was written in March 1961 to her psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Green's son. Just days earlier, she had been admitted to the Payne Whitney Psychiatric Clinic in New York, sent there after a breakdown. She believed it was supposed to be rest and therapy. Instead, she described something closer to imprisonment. She wrote, "The inhumanity there I found archaic. Everything was under lock and key. I felt I was in prison for a crime I hadn't committed." In the letter, she told him how she begged to be released, how she smashed a glass to prove she was unsafe, how she felt stripped of dignity. Those words are devastating. They strip away the fantasy of the blonde bombshell and leave us with a terrified woman trapped in a hospital ward. Her despair wasn't just about that moment. It ran deeper. In another note, she reflected, "Please don't talk about me if I break down. I can't bear the thought of being ridiculed for something that is so painful." She wrote about feeling like a failure as an actress, a failure as a woman. In later biographies, that single line, "I feel I am a failure as a woman," became one of the most quoted of her life. Not because it was dramatic, but because it captured the rawness of someone crushed under impossible expectations. Even her last interview, published in Life magazine just weeks before her death, echoed the same tone. Speaking to journalist Richard Merriman, she said, "Fame will go by. I want to be an artist, an actress with integrity. I don't want to be made a joke." She knew how the world saw her, and she hated it.
If I'm going to be a symbol of something, I'd rather have it sex than some other thing they got symbols of.
But the letters also reveal something else, her longing for connection. Again and again, she wrote about wanting love, wanting stability, wanting someone to see her not as Marilyn Monroe, but as Norma Jean. To her acting coach, Paula Strasberg, she confessed she was afraid she'd inherited her mother's mental illness, that she would lose control and be abandoned. To Arthur Miller, she admitted how fragile she felt, terrified of not being enough for him. The pain in her letters wasn't performative. It wasn't a script for sympathy. It was unfiltered honesty from a woman who had nowhere else to turn. Reading her handwriting today, you can almost hear her voice trembling between the lines. This is the part of Marilyn Monroe's story the world refused to believe while she was alive. That behind the glamour was a woman battling depression, exploitation, and a loneliness so deep it swallowed her. Her letters weren't the diary of a diva. They were the testimony of a human being. And in those words, the real Marilyn spoke louder than she ever could on screen. No one believed her when she said she was hurting, but the letters left no room for doubt.
She just would stop a scene in the middle, even though it was going fine as far as the director and as far as the other actors went. But if it didn't feel right to her, she would just say sorry, and she'd just shake her hands to loosen up and relax and turn, and we'd do it again.
Segment 4. Love, Betrayal, and the Men in Her Life. Marilyn Monroe's love life was a constant headline. Joe DiMaggio, Arthur Miller, rumored affairs with presidents and actors. But the gossip pages rarely captured what these relationships really meant to her. Her letters did. When Marilyn married baseball legend Joe DiMaggio in January 1954, the press called it the perfect American love story, the glamorous movie star and the all-American athlete. But behind the cameras, the match was strained. DiMaggio wanted a traditional wife. Marilyn was chasing independence and bigger roles. Just 9 months later, she filed for divorce, citing mental cruelty. Yet the story didn't end there. Even after their split, DiMaggio remained connected to her. He was one of the few men who tried to protect her. After her death, he arranged her funeral, and for 20 years, he sent roses to her grave 3 times a week. But it was Arthur Miller who left the deepest mark on Marilyn's soul.
In a way, we were both trying to do the same thing, which was I was desperately trying all my life to...
They married in June 1956 in a small, intimate ceremony. She called him her anchor. In her letters, she wrote about feeling safe with him, describing him as her true love. For a time, she believed she'd finally found the stability she craved. But as the years went on, her letters revealed heartbreak. During the filming of The Misfits, a movie Miller wrote for her, Marilyn's notebooks shifted in tone. She wrote poems that started with admiration, but ended with despair. She confessed to friends that she felt betrayed, that she feared Miller no longer wanted her. In one note, she described feeling like she was losing him, like she wasn't enough. She questioned her worth as a wife, as a woman, as an artist.
See, that's the trouble. A sex symbol becomes a thing. Well, I just hate to be a thing.
It wasn't just Miller. In her letters to Paula Strasberg, Marilyn opened up about fearing abandonment, about feeling unloved. She wrote about the terror of being left alone, of being considered crazy like her family. And then there were the whispers of other men. The telegram from Marlon Brando, auctioned in 2016, hinted at a bond between them, warm, affectionate, though never fully confirmed. To Brando, she wasn't just Marilyn Monroe. She was a friend who needed kindness. But it was Miller who shattered her most deeply. By the end of their marriage in 1961, Marilyn's letters read like the fragments of a broken heart. She described herself as lost, alone. And the betrayal cut deeper because she had once believed he was her salvation.
If I am a star, the people made me a star. There was no studio.
To the tabloids, Marilyn's love life was a soap opera. But in her handwriting, it was tragedy. She wasn't the carefree star chasing men for fun. She was a woman searching for love, terrified of being left behind, and devastated when the people she trusted most let her down. And her letters, raw, emotional, unfiltered, made it clear. Marilyn Monroe wasn't just breaking under the weight of fame. She was breaking from the pain of betrayal. And then came her final days, letters that still leave us wondering what she knew and what she feared.
Absolutely gorgeous. She had skin like a baby's. I mean, she didn't have a line on her face, and she was more than 30 at the time, and she just looked like a child.
Segment 5: The mystery of her final days. On the night of August 4th, 1962, Marilyn Monroe was found dead in her Los Angeles home. She was just 36. The official cause was listed as a probable suicide from a barbiturate overdose. Empty bottles of Nembutal and chloral hydrate were found by her bedside. The coroner's report described it as a self-administered overdose. But almost immediately, questions began. How could Hollywood's brightest star, who just weeks earlier had given interviews about her career, suddenly be gone? Why were there inconsistencies in the reports? Why did her death happen at a time when rumors swirled about her connection to powerful men like President John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert? Conspiracy theories bloomed. Some claimed she was silenced because she knew too much. Others believed she was the victim of an accidental overdose, her body failing after years of prescription drug use. In 1982, the Los Angeles District Attorney reopened the case. After reviewing the evidence, they concluded there was no foul play. The official verdict stood. But her letters, they paint a more complicated picture.
You know, you're the only star that they've got, or you're the attention star, you know, and they look at me as if I was much.
Just a year earlier, in March 1961, Marilyn had written to Dr. Ralph Greenson about her time at Payne Whitney. She confessed the inhumanity she experienced, how archaic and disturbing it felt. She described smashing a glass to prove she wasn't safe. Those words showed a woman battling despair, terrified of being locked away again. In other writings, she confessed her fear of failure, her loneliness, her exhaustion. Yet, in her final Life magazine interview that July, she also expressed hope. She spoke about wanting to be taken seriously as an artist, about moving past the dumb blonde roles, about still fighting for her place. It's this contradiction that makes her final days so haunting. Her words swing between despair and determination, between hopelessness and ambition. Did her death come from overwhelming pain, from feeling abandoned and ridiculed? Or was there something more, something darker, that we'll never fully know? The truth is, her letters don't solve the mystery, but they do something far more important. They give her a voice in her own story, a voice that had been ignored, dismissed, and silenced in her lifetime. Through those pages, Marilyn Monroe wasn't just a tragic headline. She was a woman, fragile, brilliant, human, facing battles that fame could never protect her from. And in the end, her letters outlived the rumors. They revealed not the mystery, but the woman herself.
On behalf of Look magazine, I'd like to present to you the Look Achievement Award as the most outstanding feminine newcomer of 1952. Congratulations.
Thank you, Lauren. And my thanks to Look magazine.
Segment 6: The woman behind the legend. For decades, Marilyn Monroe was remembered as a symbol. The blonde bombshell, the dream girl, the woman in the white dress whose image outlived her. But her letters told another story. They revealed Norma Jean, the little girl who grew up in foster homes, the actress who fought to be respected, who studied with the greatest teachers of her time, who longed to be taken seriously. They revealed a woman who wasn't shallow or simple, but thoughtful, passionate, and desperately searching for love and stability. Her words showed pain, fear of failure, the crushing weight of fame. But they also showed hope, dreams of being more than a punchline, longings to be seen as a real artist. The truth is, Marilyn Monroe's legacy is complicated. She was both the glamorous star the world adored and the fragile woman scribbling notes in the dark. Her beauty lit up the screen, but her writing lit up her soul. When those letters were finally made public, sold at auction, published in books, displayed for the world, it was as though Marilyn was finally heard. After decades of being dismissed, mocked, and misunderstood, her own words cut through the noise. No one believed her when she said she was hurting. No one believed her when she said she was breaking. But her letters revealed every crack, and through them, we see not just the legend, not just the icon, but a human being, lonely, brilliant, flawed, and real. For decades, she was a symbol, but in her letters, she became Norma Jean again. And maybe that's the legacy she wanted all along. Not just to be remembered as Hollywood's brightest star, but to be remembered as a woman who wanted to be loved. A woman who wanted to be heard. And now, through her letters, she finally is.